Hello and welcome. I'm Coach Carol, and this video is part of my new AI Genealogy Revolution series. In week 2, we're focused on using AI tools to help you with your ancestral storytelling. I'll feature the latest Claude Sonnet 4.5 in my demonstrations. I've been working on a new and simpler workflow to draw out ancestral stories from the documents and records that I've gathered in my genealogy research. This week, I'll share how to use AI to transform dry records into compelling ancestor stories in a simple 4-step process. Along the way, you'll get tips for balancing creativity with historical accuracy in your family history writing. These are the 4 practical steps when building a story from a record. We need some anchoring facts. Your anchor is the primary source that grounds your story in fact, perhaps an obituary, a marriage certificate, or a baptism record. Next, we need mining for details. Don't just record names and dates, hunt for those small, telling details that bring texture. Look at the people named in an obituary, the witness names on a marriage certificate, or the birth date details on a baptism record. And 3, building scenes. Now you can layer your historical context to create a sense of the moment without inventing specifics. Look behind the moment to the broader history for the family, the community, and the era. Finally, number 4, fact-checking and flagging invention or speculation. Before you publish or share, audit every sentence. Verify those citations from primary resources. This is the process I used recently to write an enhanced profile for a distant ancestor using Claude Sonnet 4.5. It's the newest model in the suite. I used these steps: identify and use an anchor document to ground the ancestral story, and I used an obituary. Extract micro details that enrich a narrative without guessing. I uncovered details I had missed on first glance. Construct a research-based sensory scene. I was able to reveal more and write that sensory scene. Audit and label imagined material so readers know what's evidence and what's not. I could also include fluidly where speculation was used. So what it is, the record closest to the event: a baptism register, a birth certificate, a ship manifest. Why does it matter? Well, secondary sources can contain transcription errors, assumptions, or conflations. So now and then we need to return to the original image where possible. For example, I've found that baptism records, at least the English ones, are often filed days after birth. Sometimes they're more reliable for the birth date than a delayed civil registration. So here's step 1 checklist. You locate that original scanned image of the record. In my case, I went back to the newspaper in which that obituary appeared. Note the repository that it was found in, the call number, the URL, and any transcription differences. For example, you can use Ancestry transcribe these days. Then save a high-quality image and transcribe the exact wording. No need to normalize it yet. Do save the clip. Record anything that's written in the margins, any corrections or endorsements. That wasn't applicable in my obituary, but it might be on the document that you're looking at. And then upload the document or image to Claude. The next step is to extract those micro details, the ones that I mentioned in the prior slides. You might need to look carefully at the names of the witnesses to a marriage. They may lead to further research for siblings and friends of the family. Look closely at the occupation of your ancestors in those census records. Look at the description that the transcriber has given. Do they match? Have a look at the address and how specific or how accurate that it is for that small town or village that your ancestor came from. And don't stop at just names and dates. Collect everything that you can find there to add the texture. So that's what I mean by extracting those micro details. And of course, write them down. Other things to look for include marks and signatures. Sometimes they give literacy clues, such as when there's an X on a marriage certificate indicating that either the bride or groom was illiterate and unable to write or sign. Look for marginal notes or later corrections. Have a look at unusual phrasing or spelling. This is especially so in local dialects. Have a look at exact birthplaces, correlate with their ages. Look at the household composition. If you're looking at death certificates, look at the cause of death and if it's related to their occupation, were there occupational hazards and any medical remarks. All of these are your fine micro details. Next, we're going to build the scene. We use a sensory template, which is anchored to your evidence, but we want to make it readable and enjoyable. So we're looking behind now for sights, sounds, smells, taste, etc. For example, do you have photos that show you what these people in your tree looked like or their families? Or do you have images of streets or building plans? Can you use your AI tool to sift through what your ancestors may have heard, for example, in their workplace, depending on what they did? What did they hear in their streets, church bells or market calls? And choose plausible sounds that match the place and activity. Don't forget smell and think about taste and weather, and only when typical conditions are known. For example, local weather in towns like a damp November in Glasgow. So we're layering the historical context. We're not inventing facts. We're relying on the AI tool to bring up those plausible sensory details that we want for sight, sound, smell, and taste. What else can you look for? And what else can you ask your AI tool to do? Here's a couple of prompt examples that will help you. Write a 3-line sensory scene for a dockside farewell in Plymouth, 1925. Include a 22-year-old woman, a domestic servant, and she has a third-class fare to Sydney, Australia. Use period-appropriate details. For example, describe the interior of a Welsh nonconformist chapel during a baptism in 1880. We're asking ourselves to focus on visual and auditory elements and thereby keeping it factual and within a word limit. We can always edit the AI output, looking for anachronisms and modern phrasing and putting our own stamp on it. Include short dialogue where appropriate. Sign here, please, the clerk likely said. Or this one, the servers would have included opening sentences from a scripture, likely including, "I am the resurrection and the life, saith the Lord." Use these sparingly and label as imagined. The final step is your fact check and flagging of inventions. It's a good idea to highlight your speculative lines in a distinct colour or set them in square brackets, for example. Add inline markers for things like inferred from trade directories. And keep a short citation list for each contextual claim. Here's something that you can put at the start or the end of the story so the readers understand your approach. I call it a method key. So, for example, factual claims, documented in primary sources, see citations. Dialogue and emotional states, marked speculative and based on typical practice. Context notes, sources are listed in footnotes. So here's a summary of those 4 steps for you. We endeavour to find the anchor, locate that original image and transcribe it. Of course, use AI to help you with that transcription. From it, extract those micro details and collect everything together. Then begin to build your scene, adding sensory lines anchored to your research. Then do your fact checking and verify everything. So here's a task for you, probably take 10 to 20 minutes. And I'm suggesting Claude Sonnet 4.5 for this. And I'm going to show you an example of mine at the end of this presentation. So pick a single primary record, a baptism, birth, marriage, obituary, or manifest. Identify 3 micro details that you can extract. Write a 3-line sensory paragraph using one AI prompt, and you'll see an example below. And mark what's speculative and add 1 source citation. So there's your prompt. Write a 3-line sensory scene for an event in a specific place at a time. Include the details of the person, their occupation for that place, and use period appropriate details. You get to fill in where you see the square brackets. Next, you might like to join us over in the Thursday Geni Club. In 2026, we're going to explore and use our AI tools and come together in discovery gatherings. So look for the Thursday Gen AI Club on Facebook. The next step in this series is called AI-powered graphic designs. So join me next week to discover how Gemini is leading the field in image generation with Nano Banana. If you need help, you can contact me by email, at my website, or at my blog. Stay tuned for the next video in this series, the AI genealogy revolution.